Hello there! I probably blew out my microphone then. It's Thursday, which means it's time, once again, for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast which offers objective, hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me, as always, he can't handle the truth. It's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
I can't remember if we've done that one before, to be honest.
Well, that's a classic. That could be the one all the time, but it's great. It's great. I like it. I will say that you blowing out your microphone, it's a lovely callback, Konrad, to last week's episode where that was my favourite pastime, it seems.
Yeah, where all the audio got ballsed up. Yeah, so for those of you who didn't join us last week, for new listeners, you missed a treat last week where we did a movie diary and Anthony's audio was all screwed up and he had to work very hard to fix it.
Yeah,
but we're here now.
Yeah, if you see me looking down this way, it's very much because I'm looking to see if my audio is blowing out because now I'm paranoid about it.
I'm a little gun shy about it as well, to be honest, which is why I introduced my coming in hot introduction to apologise immediately for potentially blowing out the audio. Welcome to oh, for God's sake, I can't even talk this week because I'm so like nervous about the potential for ruining the audio. Welcome to a movie diary.
That's what we're doing.
The thing we do where we talk about all the movies we've seen since the last time we did one of these. We did a movie diary last week. It's a movie diary this week. Before we get into it, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. We are The Culture Cave there and on podcasting apps if that is your preferred means of listening. We are the best movie podcast ever. Give us a like. Share the show with your friends. That really does help with getting the engagement numbers up. And just enjoy yourself. Just settle in.
Yep.
But yeah.
Let's settle in. We'll settle in so much that I'll forget to say... Oh, hang on. You didn't give him a lead-in.
No, I didn't. I kind of threw to you without really giving you anything to buy. Then I was sort of like, and also I did the classic thing when you're doing a podcast in a video format where you're not both in the same room. I shifted my eyes from the webcam in front of me here down to your picture, down to your video feed down here,
as if
expecting you to somehow understand that meant I was looking at you to say something. We're a professional show here on the best movie podcast.
Just nodding. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But without further ado, I say it's time to talk about some movies. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Movies. We've all heard about them, and we're here to discuss them. I've seen quite a few this week. I've seen some bangers last week. Last week? Yeah, I guess it was over the last week.
It was last week, yeah.
The week before was a shocker, as regular listeners will know. But I'm coming in hot this week. I'm enthusiastic. I've seen some classics. I've seen some movies that I absolutely love. Anthony's camera just moved in the peripheral.
You know what's hilarious about that? If you didn't mention it, I was going to fix it in post. But now I won't. Now I won't fix it in post.
God.
If you're a video listener, right, you'll know what we're laughing at because I will not fix it.
If you're new to the show, we are okay at this, I promise. Like normally we're better than this, but for some reason we're just in a giggly, silly mood today. But I reckon I'm going to get things started this week. I'm going to seize the reins, seize the day, and talk about a movie that I think it's really your fault that I watch these movies, because we talked about a very good movie last week in the form of Forrest Gump, and put me in a Tom Hanks kind of mood. So it's going to be a sort of pseudo Tom Hanks appreciation episode, this one. The first movie of his that I'd like to discuss this week is an absolute classic, and it's 1998's Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, lovely.
Have you ever seen this movie?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. So it's probably the last Spielberg movie. I'm trying to think now. I think it's probably the last Spielberg movie that I really loved. I don't know if I loved any of his movies after this. Maybe
Ready Player One?
Ready Player One was better than a lot of people said it was, but I mean, it's still... Yeah, I think...
It's not like Saving Private Ryan good. Yeah, I know what you mean.
No, yeah, I mean, like, there was like Minority Report with Spielberg, I believe, and AI and War Horse were okay.
I never saw the film of War Horse. I did see the play, which was fantastic, though.
Yeah. But so for those of you who don't know, basically Saving Private Ryan, it tells the story of a group of US Army Rangers who are tasked with bringing home a young private from Normandy after it is revealed that his three other brothers have been killed in action, and essentially they need to cross war-torn France, giving us a glimpse of the horrors of the conflict being waged there, to find him deep behind enemy lines. And the eponymous Private Ryan is played by Matt Damon in probably... I think he'd been in Good Will Hunting at this point. I actually can't remember if this was before or after Good Will Hunting. I think it was after Good Will Hunting.
It would have been after, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the beginning of a rich tradition in Matt Damon's career for just I mean, we knew he was in this, to be fair, unlike in later movies, but Matt Damon has a habit of just showing up 2/3 of the way through movies now. Like, hello, friends.
Can we say the other one you're thinking of? Like, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, sure. It's been long enough, and everyone knows it's
Interstellar. In fact, actually, we talked about you didn't like that part, so we've already talked about that before. But yeah, he did that. He does that a couple of times. Also, he also shows up in the film Euro Trip at the very beginning.
Does. That's true.
Yeah, as a singer.
He loves a cameo. Loves a cameo. I mean, he gets paid, probably a hefty salary for half a day's work, so he must I understand the appeal, certainly. I love this movie. I'm a sucker for a good World War II movie. To quote Small Soldiers, there is the kind of dickhead neighbor character in that movie says while watching, I think it might be The Longest Day they're watching, but he says while watching a World War II movie that he thinks World War II is his favourite war, which is a great line in that movie. It's the guy who played Lionel Hutz in The Simpsons who's no longer with us.
I know, isn't there a really crazy, sad story about him and his partner?
Yeah. I think his wife murdered him because she I think she might have had schizophrenia or something like that.
And mutilated his body in a way that I don't really want to talk about. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he was great in that movie, and I stand by that joke as like every time I think about war movies, I'm like, probably World War II. That was a good one as far as
pretty
depictions of movies go. There was a clear good guy. That's what we can say about World War II, right?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe the fight against the robots in the Terminator was probably the second one, I would say. Second
that was a big
war.
one. The fight against Skynet was there was a clear good guy in that one, I would say.
That comes somewhere between
the Star
World
War as well. That was a huge one.
Somewhere between the Great War and World War II. Somewhere between.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're or I certainly myself. I'm not sure if I'm intellectually equipped to discuss the morality of warfare on a movie podcast, but here we are. We've arrived at it. But this is a great movie. It's I believe both Spielberg and Tom Hanks won naval medals for the opening scene with the depiction of the D-Day landings because of how kind of visceral and realistic it is.
Yeah.
And I absolutely get it. I think that like in terms of movie openings, the like Operation Overlord opening for this is up there with some of the best action movie openings I've ever seen. And it's just this. I feel like this is kind of like a proto Band of Brothers in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Except where Band of Brothers is sort of a who's who of British actors who would appear in massive things over the next 10 years. Saving Private Ryan is just these amazing like curtain call of American character actors. So you got obviously Tom Hanks as the lead.
Yeah.
You got Tom Sizemore showing up as the kind of rotund sergeant. Edward Burns, who I was convinced Edward Burns was going to be a big deal after this movie, and it never really happened for him. Giovanni Ribisi, who sitcom fans will know as Phoebe's brother from Friends. Obviously Matt Damon's there, but then you've got like Bryan Cranston shows up for a scene, Dennis Farina shows up for a scene, Paul Giamatti, Ted Danson, Nathan Fillion, Leyland Orser. It's just like, God, were all these guys just hanging around in northern France?
This reminds me very much of a film I watched this week, which we'll get back into this theme of actors randomly showing up when I get there. But I will say as well, for sitcom fans, Adam Goldberg's also in this, and you might remember him from Friends as well. Of course,
as
the crazy roommate with little fish in the bowl.
Yeah, and one of the, I don't know if I'd call it the most horrific, but I don't want to give it away. Like I've kind of just given the game away by saying that. What happens to his spoilers for Saving Private Ryan, I guess, is a 23-year-old movie, guys. Come on. Yeah. What happens to his character has stayed with me in a way that a lot of character deaths haven't. I think it's fair to say. I don't know what it. I think it's just the sort of brutal simplicity of it, but for some reason that has really stayed with me. And remains up there for kind of most harrowing depictions of a death on screen I think I've seen.
Well, I remember watching this film and thinking that it was so awesome the way it was very realistic and harrowing in the way you say it made you see the realism of the war, and also the fact that all of this big mission, it kind of reminds me of 1917 as well, like the idea of this mission across the battlefield to get to Matt Damon's character, Private Ryan, just to save him, because like the idea is that he has three brothers who've already died, and there was a thing where you can't let all of the siblings die. Can't send all the coffins home to mom. Basically,
can't send another folded American flag back to Mama Ryan.
So, but I really enjoyed it. I haven't actually watched this again since I've went to Normandy. I went to Omaha Beach and I saw all the graves, and I haven't actually watched it again since then. I probably should actually, because I'm sure it'll have even more emotional weight to me now that I've actually been and seen the graves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure it will. I'm envious that you've been there, to be honest. But it's just a great movie. It's kind of, it has that almost melodramatic kind of emotional quality to it, because it doesn't really get into the complexities of these characters. Like, what they're doing is so fundamentally good that it's kind of just like, these are the good guys, what they're trying to do is a good thing, and you're so with them from the beginning. And it could be cheesy, but like Spielberg pulls it off. I just called him Spielberg for some reason.
We'll go with it.
Germaned up his name for some reason. And like, aside from the obvious plaudits that he tends to receive for his movies, this was, I think, the first time he worked with cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, who did stuff like, I think he basically did every movie with Spielberg after this point, and it's really stunning. It's a great movie to look at. It's quite grey and bleak in a lot of places, which I think kind of reflects the tone of the movie. But yeah, this is easily one of my favourite war movies, and I was happy to come back to it for the first time in probably about 15 years since I'd seen this as well, to be honest.
Awesome. All right, so we didn't mention actually, Conrad, but I've got only 2.5 films to go through.
Anthony's been lax. Well, no, that's not fair. You've got more important real world commitments than I do.
yeah. But I've also been watching like TV shows and stuff, which I need to do.
Yeah, that's true. I've watched literally nothing in terms of TV. Oh, that's not true. I watched that samurai show on Netflix, and it was awful. I watched the first episode of it, and I was just like, that's going in the bin. No more of that.
Is that a foreign language show?
No, it's like, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Samurai, the Rise of something. It's basically a docudrama about the Sengoku Jedi, and which is very much my wheelhouse. But when you start mixing like documentarians and historians with badly kind of with like low rent live action footage, it's always a dangerous game you're playing there. And unfortunately,
as I mentioned before on this podcast, actually, I'm not that big of a fan of reenactment documentaries where they reenact while they're talking, but sometimes it's done well. But anyway, that's off the point. But basically, I'm going to go into a film now which I haven't seen, and I don't know why I haven't seen it till now. In fact, it's from a director that I know that I will love everything they've done. Well, for the most part, you can never say that truly, but I've only seen maybe half of their stuff, and this is the one that is probably going to be their high point in their career for all intents and purposes, and that is Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson. I'd actually never seen this film. My wife said she saw it years ago.
That joke will never die. I think. Just as an aside, like the fact that that's still funny. Sorry, carry on. Yeah. Wes Anderson, let's talk about it.
When that joke was first around, I didn't have a wife to say it about. Now I do.
That's true, yeah.
But basically, she watched it back when we were in university when it first came out. She absolutely loved it. I don't know why I didn't watch it, but it's really good.
So have you seen other Wes Anderson movies or not?
Yes,
really?
I've seen about half of them. Okay. I haven't seen them all.
Yeah.
I've seen about half of them, and obviously it has his own style. He's got a very. In my opinion, it's like a really hard to pin down style. It's kind of like everything's kind of like in a dollhouse, and it's very much like, well, because he uses those like set point of focus shots where like people are often like running away from the camera to reveal like a sense of scale, and he does a lot of like front facing. Well, it's not really him. It's his cinematographer. I think for pretty much everything he's done from his team, but it's this guy called Robert Yeoman,
and the way he shoots things, it very much has that kind of like Doll's House quality to it, and it's. I think it's not surprising that he made the move into doing a lot of animated movies recently, because I feel like the way he wants to present his shots definitely leans that way.
Yeah, no, and like I'm a big fan of it, and I like something that's different than the rest of the stuff out there. But I like that in terms of like the way the composition of the shot is as well. I think there's 3 different aspect ratios in this film alone. Yeah. I think it's I love the composition. There's a particular composition where Edward Snowden, who's playing like a policeman or like it seems to be a policeman or a soldier of some sort, and
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, who I said Edward Snowden.
Edward Snowden. I was like, is he in this movie?
Yeah, no, not JGL doing a horrible accent.
I never actually saw that, to be honest. But
it was all right. It wasn't the worst in the world. Like, you know, I think it's time for what's his name? Roger Stone. No, not Roger Stone. I'm all over the place now. Is it Roger Stone who made JFK?
Oliver Stone.
Roger Stone is the guy from the weird white-haired guy. Get me Roger Stone, that documentary. Anyway, okay. I'm all over the place, guys.
Well, no, we're bringing it back. It's all relevant.
Everyone, please have a different first name and last name. That would really help me out. Anyway, Edward Norton. There's a particular scene where it shows Saoirse Ronan's character of someone running away, and then Edward Norton just literally the whole screen is there, and he appears in like the bottom 16th of the screen, just in the corner, like, what's going on over there? And I just love that composition of him just popping up in the bottom of the screen, you know?
Yeah, I think they really understand like the natural comedy of someone running away, but seeing the whole thing uncut in a really wide angle. Like, so there's the bit where Ray Fiennes they want to bring him in for questioning, and it starts with him and Edward Norton's character talking like in the front of the shot, but they've got the whole kind of like double staircase of the hotel behind him, and Ray Fiennes is like, and you think I did it, and then he just runs really kind of like ungracefully off into the background, and Edward Norton and all his cops like, hey, stop him! And then they just kind of like run after him, but the shot just holds for like 10 seconds. It's so funny.
I personally, this film wasn't what I expected, but I really loved what it was. I was expecting it to be more based in the hotel than it actually was.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting that the Grand Budapest Hotel is kind of an idea. So basically, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's the story of this hotel that had its, you know, it was really thriving in its heyday, and we're sort of in the 60s is kind of the present day. Well, actually, no. Actually, there's a woman at the very beginning.
The 60s is
the
one
middle.
of like So I think it's the 80s is the present day, and the 60s is the one of the characters from the 30s, I guess it would be, who grows up and then tells the story to a young girl.
It's actually like 3 or 4 different stories within the same thing, and like it's kind of like Inception. It's like they keep going a level deeper in the story. Like one person keeps telling the story, but basically it's a story of a will. Back in the 30s, it's a story of a will of an old woman who's very rich, and it's like, and Ralph Fiennes' character has Monsieur Gustav has like sort of got to know her very well, we'll say, which has led him. He's
a romancer of the elderly. Let's not beat around the bush. Like he's a fan of the elderly.
It's led to him being put in her will, which is very much against what her family's wishes are. Her family is absolutely hilarious. Adrian Brody, Willem Dafoe, just doing their best bad guy impressions.
Yeah, Adrian Brody is such a good bad guy in this. Like he's properly menacing in a ridiculous way that I love.
Yeah, and this is what I was going to say, is it sort of ties into that Saving Private Ryan. So many big names pop up in this. Like, Harvey Keitel plays a role, Jude Law, Bill Murray, Edward Norton.
Bill Murray, you can set your watch to Bill Murray showing up in a Wes Anderson movie. Like,
It's like his 9th one he's been in.
Tilda Swinton's in this as well. Like Wes Anderson, I think.
I'm not going to tell you don't say who Tilda Swinton is in it, but she's in it. But it's very interesting to see her in it. Also, Jeff Goldblum as well.
Yeah,
I can't help but laugh at him these days. Like,
I think Wes Anderson definitely has the market cornered on volume of quality cameos that tend to show up in his movies. You know, like most directors have their guys, and I use that like non-gender specifically. They're their group of people that they turn to. So you know, the classic example is Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter showing up in
Tim Burton's stuff.
Tim Burton stuff, but that's quite a small group that Tim Burton typically picks from. Wes Anderson, it feels like, has spent the last 20 years, or more than that now, 25 years, cultivating this stable of amazing or not even character actors, like leading actors who just want to be in his films, and they're more to the point, they're happy to be character actors in his movies as well, which means you get to see people like, I don't know, Jude Law in this movie, or turn in performances that are really different than what you would normally see them turn in, which makes it really interesting. So I love that about Wes Anderson movies, and this one in particular.
No, I really love that. Like, I love whenever I was so invested in the storyline and the world, and like just the nature of it as well, and like even like the cinematography style and the production design. But then when you also get every 5 minutes, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god,
it's Bill Murray.
It's just so cool. But but I will say as well, Jude Law, is he just typecast as like an author who is a narrator as well? Is that just his role now in Hollywood?
That's it. That's what he's slipped into now. Like, he was a leading man for the bit of the early 2000s. Now that's just what Jude Law does. Is he's a writer.
Like Lemony Snicket, he's in this. He was also Watson, obviously, as we know, and then he was also a writer in that film Closer as well, with Natalie Portman and Julia Roberts.
Yep,
so he's literally like an author who sometimes also narrates the story. It's really strange what's happening.
He's just got a lovely voice, a lovely velvety voice.
Yeah, it must be. I'm sure he as Dumbledore, he did the same thing. But anyway, that's Grand Budapest Hotel. I'm very happy that I finally gave it a watch. Owen Wilson also pops up at the
of course he does. Of course he does. Like, talking about characters you can set your watch to popping up in Wes Anderson movies, Owen Wilson is there and like ready to perform at the drop of a hat. Despite I don't think he really does much acting anymore, Owen Wilson, but I think he still turns up for Wes Anderson.
Yeah, well, he was in that Google movie a few years ago with Vince Vaughn. But
he was. That's that ill-judged Google movie starring Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson.
Yeah, but I can tell you, like, having watched it, like, everyone raves about it, and I can see why. It's a really good film.
Yeah, I can't wait for The French Dispatch is Wes Anderson's kind of delayed next movie, and I've been really looking forward to that for, I feel like, 5 years now, and hopefully
I actually
it'll
haven't
come
seen
out at some
Isle of
point.
Dogs yet either. I've got it on Blu-ray. I bought it not long ago, actually, but I need to watch it.
Like, Isle of Dogs is good. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox is his best. His only other animation to date, but I Fantastic Mr. Fox is so goddamn good.
Yeah, no, I love that film. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well that's lovely. That's lovely. Like, and I think I'm not going to say take us down a notch here, because I don't want to set this table too low. But we're keeping in. I'm staying in the Tom Hanks wheelhouse for another installment here.
Okay.
But it's not as good as Saving Private Ryan or the Grand Budapest Hotel, I'm going to say. This is 2021's News of the World.
Oh yes, this actually I tend to watch this actually.
Yeah, so it's not a bad movie. I'll say that to begin with. I don't want to give an unfair impression of it. What it is a straight as an arrow genre film, and you kind of know what you're going to get. When I tell you what the plot is, you'll immediately conjure an idea in your mind of who these characters are and what the major story beats are, and that is exactly what this movie is.
Okay.
So it's essentially about a gruff, sort of taciturn older man who's quite kind of emotionally guarded, who goes from town to town reading the news for money, and he comes across on one of these journeys he comes across a wreckage of a caravan in which he finds a young seemingly German girl but who speaks a Native American language, and through a sequence of events he basically becomes responsible for bringing her to some distant relatives across the country. So she needs to travel with him. He's not that happy about it. She doesn't speak the language, but she's got a heart of gold, God bless her. and wouldn't you know it, she softens him, and in the end, you know, they grow closer, and a big lesson is learned. It's not doing anything new in terms of the ideas in the movie. As I say, once you've seen a movie like this, you kind of know where this one's going to go. But I will say for it, these kind of movies where they really, really kind of conform to genre traditions, kind of live and die on their lead performances. Mm-hmm. And Tom Hanks is always a great leading man. He's very strong in this. And the young girl played by Helena Zengel is also very, very good. And that's what makes this a good movie, I think. You're going to get the standard story beats that you would expect, but it's those two performances that really elevate it, I think.
Okay, so I haven't seen it, but I imagine I could already give it a one-line review. The grit.
Go on, give it a go.
The grit could have been truer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not. It's gritty in places. I will say it's interesting actually. After talking about how Forrest Gump last week is kind of like this road trip through Americana in the 50s through to the 80s. This kind of has a similar feeling about it. I don't think Paul Greengrass. I'm a bit mixed on him as a director, generally speaking, but I think he doesn't pull it off as convincingly as Zemeckis does. But you do get to see this kind of post-Civil War American landscape that they're depicting and see interesting parts of it. So this kind of the movie starts, I believe, in Texas, which is where Hanks's character is from, and you get to see like the sort of low-level resistance to the northern occupation, and then like the sort of horrifically industrial level of buffalo farming. It's the metaphors and the ideas it's exploring, and the kind of analogues with the sort of titans of capitalism that run all this stuff are pretty clumsy, but they're good. They're interesting to actually see. So it's as I say, it's not doing anything particularly new or particularly exciting, but if you like these kind of movies and you want something that hits those like classic genre notes with some strong leading performances, News of the World is not bad, I will say.
It sounds like the film for me, to be honest with you. Then, even the fact that you said buffalo. You said buffalo farming. It put me back straight away into Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp. That's at the start of that film. He's out hunting buffalo and getting the pelts. It just put. I love being in that world. I don't know. Even like Red Dead Redemption is my favorite video game of all time.
I think it does. I think it does a decent job of realizing that world. I think if you like the Old West, and you want to feel the kind of dustiness and the grittiness of it, this does a decent job of doing that. It's not overly unpleasant. It doesn't really want to dive into the grit, as you say, but it's realistic enough, and it spends enough time there that I found that like that aspect of the film quite compelling. And yeah, Hanks and Zengel are really, really strong as well. Yeah,
because we talked last week about the chemistry between the child actor and the main star being the linchpin in a successful film. And actually, it's kind of like in a different genre version of My Spy from last week. It kind of is. Yeah. It's basically like the coming together of these two.
Yeah, you've got to get that chemistry, because these two are literally carrying your movie. So if it's not there, the film falls apart. But fortunately, Hanks always brings it, and Helena Zengel is a promising actor to look out for in the future. I didn't actually look at how old she is, but she seems quite young. She seems like she's maybe 12 or 13 in this movie, so definitely one to keep an eye out for.
Okay, awesome. Well, considering I've only got 2.5 and you got 4, do you want to go and again?
Okay, yeah, cool. I'm going to stay in 2021 for this this next one then, and I'm going to take it down a notch again. I don't want to like. I shouldn't lead with my one sentence review, but I'm going to do it with this because I was really looking forward to this movie, and I was very disappointed to it, and I'll get into what I'm very disappointed with it, and I'll get into why. This is also from 2021, and it's I Care a Lot by Jay Blakeson. It's essentially kind of, I guess you'd call it a black comedy, even though I didn't find it funny at all, but it's essentially like a pitch black comedy, inverted commas, starring Rosamund Pike, and she basically plays this lady called Marla Grayson, who has constructed this scheme or scam, really you'd call it, where they identify like vulnerable elderly people with money, good insurance, and low contact with family, and they essentially manipulate their relationships with doctors, judges, and individuals in care homes to establish themselves as the legal guardians of these people by basically making it basically doctors say, oh, this person can't look after themselves, they need a legal guardian, and they have no family to take care of them. So Marla Grayson and her company take over care of them and then siphon money off of them as they put them into a care home, and do pretty monstrous things like make sure they can't leave the care home by taking their phones away, increasing their drug intake and stuff like that. So when I say that I need someone to root for in a movie, and this is your protagonist, you might see where my initial problems with this movie are coming from. Yep. And I will admit, from the offset, it is a question of taste for the most part, rather than competency. But basically, the movie develops where she eventually she does this to the wrong woman. She seems innocuous at first, brilliantly played by Diane West, who I was like, that's Diane West. She was the mum in Edward Scissorhands. Nice to see her again. But it turns out that this woman, this seemingly innocuous old lady, is actually the mother of a supposedly dead Russian mobster played by Peter Dinklage, and thus ensues a game of cat and mouse with what is essentially two awful people doing awful things to each other for 2 hours. And I didn't get much of a sense of Schadenfreude from it or any comedy from it. So I was kind of just left being like, I don't really like any of these people. I kind of want them all to just go to prison.
And did without going into heavy spoilers, I think we all know how films work. Did they eventually warm to each other?
There is a kind of mutual respect that turns up like at some point during the movie, but it's not as well deserved as in Step Brothers, for example. Like Step Brothers, kind of like the thing with something like Step Brothers, there is something likable about those characters, and again, I think it's an issue of taste for me. I know some people have been really, really high on this movie, and I think the reason is that the people who have really enjoyed it have not needed someone to be on side with in the movie. They're happy to see something which is this kind of like pitch black dissection of a system that they view as bad. But I think beyond the taste problems I have with this, which is that, you know, I don't like watching awful people do awful things on screen without it being particularly funny or getting any sense of kind of Schadenfreude from the things that happen to them.
And that second half is very important, because otherwise you wouldn't be a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is very funny, and you always get the sense that the movie is like, look at these dickheads having awful things happen, or the series is like, look at these dickheads having awful things happen to them. Yeah. I never got that sense from this. I just got the sense that the movie's like, it's bad, right? Yeah. And that's all it had to say, which to me I found kind of abhorrent, that it's like, this is the system, it's bad, but we're going to depict it anyway and not really have anything interesting to say about it. And I also think the characters, like, beyond the sort of tonal problems I had with it, I think I have an issue with the way the characters are written. I found them, I don't want to get into like Mary Sue territory here, because we've already gone off on this before, but I found them a little bit implausible. So the Russian mobsters are incredibly bad at killing people, to the point where it's like, okay, this feels like these guys are just failing to kill people because the movie needs them to stay alive, so you can do this cat and mouse thing. And likewise, you know, Marla Grayson, Rosamund Pike's character, who is very well performed, I will say that for her, but she is, you know, essentially a carer. She's a legal carer. She's a very smart and driven woman. But she starts doing like Mission Impossible spy shit about halfway through the movie, and it's like, where is this coming from?
But
like,
it doesn't have the tone of a film like that, is what you mean?
No, exactly. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I'm like, this feels like you're just wanting her to do this because you need that. Again, you need there to be some conflict, rather than, oh, she messed with the wrong person and now she's dead because of it. That really didn't work for me. And it's disappointing. I was really looking forward to this movie, but unfortunately it just did. I think that the tone it struck rubbed me the wrong way immediately, and then some of the problems I had with the script really brought me down even further on it.
Okay, that's interesting. This is a film that I had earmarked as well to check out. Based on that, I don't know if I will, to be honest with you. There's probably better ways to spend my time. I am a fan of Rosamund Pike. I thought she was fantastic in Gone Girl.
I mean, shit, this is kind of doing that. I think that's the interesting thing about it, or the depressing thing about this, I think. It feels kind of like they're trying to capture what her character from Gone Girl a little bit, with this kind of hyper competent but kind of sociopathic woman. But in Gone Girl, you're kind of rooting against her at some point, and in this, I was rooting against her, but then I was like, I don't want to root for this guy because he's a murderer. So what am I doing?
I will also say that there's like a tear inside my heart about Peter Dinklage, because I do generally like him. I thought he was really, really good in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I thought he was really good in that. Obviously, he was huge in Game of Thrones. But the thing is, because he filmed Game of Thrones in Northern Ireland, there is some clips of him saying some not very nice things about Belfast is all I'll say.
Oh, really?
I don't think he really enjoyed being here to shoot that show, and that doesn't leave me, because there's other, like, for example, Sean Bean is hailed and loved in Belfast because he's the most dead-on guy ever, and he like, he'll be cheered like by the people who work in the film industry, like my wife and stuff. If he walks into a room with them, they'll cheer him because he's so respected and he loves everyone so much, you know.
I mean, to be fair, you don't have enough time to get tired of Sean Bean, because he's finished shooting within like a day of being there.
Yeah, even when he does,
that's me done, lads.
even when he does like an interview appearance, he gets shot halfway through just to get home early, you know.
yeah. If he's in a movie for longer than an hour, he starts checking his watch. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe Sean Bean. Yeah. Well, actually, the thing is, he did stay around in Belfast after that, because he did the Frankenstein Chronicles or something like that.
That sounds right.
So that was filmed in Belfast as well, and it's just absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine Peter Dinklage kind of not getting
I don't even know if that's public. I just know through the grapevine of people who've met him in Belfast and people who I know who worked with him and stuff, that apparently he just really didn't like Belfast.
Well, he's made an enemy for life.
Yeah. Oh no, I think I still actually enjoy his performances.
Cancel Peter Dinklage. You heard it here first, folks. That's what Anthony's asking for.
It's very interesting. Like, the first one you did, Saving Private Ryan, led in well to the Grand Budapest Hotel in terms of the cameos. This one also leads very well into my next film. Based on you saying that there was not really any likable characters, no characters you were on the side of. Now, that's not exactly a true analogy to this film, but it is true for the main character, and that is 2016's Passengers, starring Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. And I just felt this film was like, so basically the setup is that they're on a spaceship that's heading to a new land, a new planet to inhabit, and it takes 120 years to get there. Except 30 years into the flight, Chris Pratt's character is awakened because an asteroid has hit the space station. So he's there all alone. And then for the first half or the first third of the film, he's questioning whether or not he should open the and wake up Jennifer Lawrence's character, because he sees her and becomes infatuated with her. And it's sort of, to be honest with you, the film is trying to skirt the line of, yes, this is clearly abhorrent, but look how great he is in other ways. And I think that obviously every single person watching it, if you went in completely blind, you would think to yourself, don't wake her up. Like, what are you doing? But then he does wake her up. And I think that they're trying to have like a philosophical question in a film, right? They're trying to have the question, would you do it? So if you are facing the rest of your life alone on a spaceship, and would you wake someone up and basically commit them to death basically on this spaceship just to have some company? And the way that Chris Pratt puts it in the film is, if I was deserted on an island and I had one wish, and I wished for someone to be on the island with me for company, but that's actually dooming them to the island, is that right or wrong? And that's what they're sort of trying to do. Having said that, and spoiler, because I can't talk about this without going into spoilers, having said that, they also then try to do a second trolley problem later on in the film, which completely just throws the logic of what they're trying to set up completely. Like, if they wanted to have it as a question, this philosophical question, should he have done it, should he have not done it, that's fine. Don't make a decision at the end by having the woman fall back in love with him. And then also give her own decision as well in a really throwaway way. So, for example, right, she wanted to, she was going to, basically, Chris Pratt was in a doorway where they needed to vent the reactor in order to get the ship working so it wouldn't blow up. Now, he had to hold the door open, otherwise the ship would blow up because the door wouldn't stay open on its own.
She said, a terrible design for a spaceship.
Terrible design. So, well, actually, it was malfunctioning, but still. She said, right, so she said, no, you die, I die. I'm not letting that happen. And then, so she said that, and then Chris Pratt's like, there's 5,000 other people on this ship. You need to click the button, right? And then she had her own little trolley problem there. She had her own problem, like his problem on the deserted island. She had her own. Or do I save the one, or do I save the 5,000? And the way that it was put across in the film, where she was starting to come around to him again, and she was saying, "I can't live without you now," and she fully bought into his shit. But he basically killed her, and she's like fully buying into the abuse now. And then they give her the option. They give her the option, and they make her a character who would kill 5,000 just to try and save him, or she would rather kill them both themselves. Yeah. And then they're sort of like, yeah, but he just woke up one woman. She was willing to kill 5,000.
Yeah, that feels like a very poor taste plot point to me from the way you've just described that.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I'm sure, have you seen this film?
No, so I basically
know all the controversy, I think. Yeah.
I heard the premise that Chris Pratt wakes up Jennifer Lawrence, and it's like a rom-com in space, but
there's no com in it, really. There's not really much.
No, well, yeah, like it's a romance in space, but they have to deal with the fallout of him basically, as you say, choosing to essentially commit her to dying on this spaceship rather than living the life she intended for herself. And that premise was enough for me to be like, it's going to take some really good writing to pull this one off, and I don't know if this movie looks like it has the chops to do that.
No, it doesn't, and not only that, they invert it back and try and give her own decision to make too. But it's in such a flippant 30-second type way where it's like, we got to throw this in the end. It was really strange, and also another plot point, which I'm still in spoiler zone here. So I'm sure if you haven't seen it already, you're not really caring about watching it, to be honest with you. But if you like if you just like being in space, fine, watch it. But it is quite strange. But basically, They throw extra coal on the fire in terms of how much he fucked up her life, because she didn't actually want to go to the planet to live forever.
That's great.
Her plan
wasn't even supposed to be here today.
Yeah, her plan was to go to the planet, live there for a year, and then go back to Earth. So then she would be 250 years in the future on Earth. And she was because she's a writer, so she wanted to go and experience that, but then go back to Earth to write all her stuff down. So he basically went, nah, fuck your plans. We're going to have you here. And it's literally, and fine, okay, you could say that he went away and he read all of her books before he woke her up, and he watched all her interviews, and he became, the fact of the matter is, all those other pods were there. He looked in and he thought, there's a good-looking woman. I'm going to wake her up because I want to have something that I can have sex with. Like, that's what he did.
But I mean, also, like, the genre seems weird. Like, if you outline the plot to me of like, oh, okay, this guy wakes up early, becomes infatuated with another passenger, reads all of her literature, becomes infatuated with her, wakes her up. To me, that's a thriller. Where he lies to her when she wakes up and says, "Oh, you've been woken up by accident too." And the movie is the obvious narrative there is about her figuring out that he's lied to her and trying to get away from him. So I don't know, it just feels really misguided. I haven't seen it, obviously, so I can't speak too critically of it. But
it's not put across the way you're describing there, where she would like slowly figure it out. Like even this is crazy, right? Early in the film, you know how like you see them setting up what's to come, right?
Yeah.
Early in the film, like he wakes her up basically third into the film, and he's got like the manual of how to do it. It's like the hibernation chamber manual.
Yeah,
and then he wakes her up. She starts waking up, and he grabs all his shit and runs away, right? Just to pretend that he didn't do it, right? So then he puts the manual in his drawer, covers it up with a coat or whatever's in the drawer, right? And you're thinking, all right, she's gonna find that eventually, that's gonna start the seed in her mind.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't come back into it. It doesn't come back into it. She finds out because the robot, Michael Sheen, the robot barman, tells her.
Oh wow! That feels like a breach of one of Asimov's laws.
Well, no. Actually, it's not because. Anyway, it's not. I'm not going to go into.
I can't even remember Asimov's laws, to be honest.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go into every detail of the film. But basically, the robot thought it was doing the right thing and thought I had permission to do so. But anyway, basically. She had no inkling of it. Like she wasn't like figuring it out and like coming to this and then realizing, oh my god, I'm in this relationship with this man and he's done this to me.
Yeah.
Having said that, there is a moment later on where another character gets woken up. And I'm not even going to tell you who the actor is because if you watch it, you'll be surprised and you'll like who the actor is. But
is it Matt Damon?
It's not Matt Damon. It's not Matt Damon.
That's a shame.
I wish it was at this point. But basically, that character then goes and checks the pods and finds out that Chris Pratt did what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like on a spaceship it'd be pretty easy to like check. I feel like spaceships probably have cameras or like logs of exactly
Oh
that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah,
We
no,
can be
exactly.
Like, oh, yeah.
But this guy even could see from the mechanics. Like, he was like a high up guy. He could see from the mechanics of what he did, and basically Chris Pratt told him what he did, and he's like, right. And then whenever Jennifer Lawrence went, so did you hear what he did? And then Lawrence Fishburne was like, I just told you who it was. So Morpheus is like, right?
Nice.
He's like, he goes, yeah, he told me, but we've got to get on with this, and he sort of ignores the news. And I'm thinking, and then Jennifer Lawrence is like, hello, he woke me up. He basically killed me, right? And I'm thinking, okay, all right, okay. So this whole film is like a trolley problem, and now they're just throwing in your face, it's about sexual abuse, guys. And I'm just like, okay, it has its merit to a certain extent, but it's not been well executed.
Yeah, it seemed like misguided from the offset. To be honest, as a concept, it's something that seems misguided, and that seems to pretty much confirm it for me.
Yeah, like no.
Okay, well, talking about well, this isn't really a rom-com. In fact, this is in no way a rom-com. Talking about movies with implausible romances in them, I'm going to do my last one, and then we'll end on your half, I think, to round us off. So, this is a movie that like I've never watched because I've always assumed that it was terrible, and I don't know why I assume that, to be honest, but this is 1992's A Few Good Men. You might have spotted it coming from the intro. It's a Rob Reiner movie, which I've never seen a Rob Reiner drama before, but I'm used to him for watching. I'm used to watching stuff from him that's like Best in Show and A Mighty Wind and Spinal Tap and stuff like that. But so essentially, it's a courtroom drama, which I'm always on board for a courtroom drama, to be honest.
Yeah.
Have you seen this movie?
No, but I've always wanted to watch it because I do love a courtroom drama too.
That's,
so
it's pretty well. Okay, so I mean, essentially the plot is that a young Marine with a bad track record, kind of turns up dead in a military base at Guantanamo Bay with two members of his unit accused of deliberately murdering him for being a bad Marine, and essentially offering it to inform on like abuses taking place on the base in exchange for being moved off of it. And Tom Cruise is your hotshot military lawyer straight out of college, who's assigned to the case, along with comedic relief Kevin Pollak and Demi Moore as the hyper-professional skeptic of Cruise's abilities. So already that dynamic there, exactly. Like, I'm not even going to say what happens with that. I don't need to. That dynamic there, 100%. You know what happens with that dynamic. The writing is very much on the wall and every wall of every movie that has ever been made. But but essentially together they will uncover a conspiracy which implicates Jack Nicholson's Colonel Jessup, and it becomes basically this kind of internal conflict of loyalties amongst the Marines. Is this like courtroom battle to prove that the two Marines actually on trial for murder were ordered to do what they did. But this is a good movie, I have to say. It's kind of cheesy. Like, Aaron Sorkin is the guy who wrote it, and I think with Aaron Sorkin screenplays, you kind of know what you're going to get. Like, you're going to get snappy dialogue, but often it will feel really unnatural because it's kind of like it's like he's having a conversation in his own head without like not really thinking about it as two characters talking to each other. And his kind of like broad themes and stuff can tend to be fairly preachy. So in what was it called, Newsroom, the series he wrote, I got so sick of that because I was just like, okay, we get it, Aaron. Like you envisage this perfect political world, and everyone should get on board with your ideas.
Although I haven't seen the Trial of the Chicago 7, which he wrote.
No, that is really good, actually. Like, I mean, it is a bit preachy, but that one is much more naturalistic by Sorkin standards for dialogue. And Social Network he wrote as well, and that was really I thought reasonably well written. But this is one of his better ones. It's got some great dialogue in it, and the courtroom scenes between the prosecution played by Kevin Bacon and Tom Cruise playing the defense lawyer with Jack Nicholson on the stand it's just some great stuff. And that's where you get the iconic "you can't handle the truth," and you get sort of courtroom scenes that are completely unrealistic. In fact, I wonder if A Few Good Men might be the main cause of people like kind of assuming that courtrooms are like this, with people kind of like roaring and pointing across the courtroom and stuff, which just never happens in real trials ever.
I wonder if the YouTube channel Legal Eagle has done like he does like reviews of law, like, you know, court cases in films. I wonder if he did one for this.
Oh, he must have done, surely. But this is a good fun movie. It's a good old courtroom drama. It's weird for me to see a Rob Reiner movie, like a Rob Reiner drama, as I say, and particularly weird to see Christopher Guest, who's obviously in Spinal Tap and a bunch of Rob Reiner's kind of comedy docudrama things or docu-comedies, just playing a completely serious character. He just plays a military doctor who's a bit of a bastard. And it's like, what are you doing, Christopher Guest? Why are you not making a joke about, you know, bloodhounds or something here? But yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it, I have to say, even if it's kind of it feels a bit cheesy by modern standards.
Yeah, it feels to me like one of those films, like, you know, those classic films that you always hear about and people quote and stuff. And to be honest with you, it's one of those films where in my life, when I finally watch it, it'll be like, okay, I remember a time before I saw that and a time after I saw that. There's like a load of films where you're like, it's like a mystical thing that's in the past, and you've heard a lot about it, and you can't really. And I've actually, to be honest with you, Conrad, I've thought of making videos before where I say I've never seen this film, like a really famous film, I've never seen it, and I just explain what I think it is. You know,
that would be great. You should do that. Do that for Casablanca, and then I'll get really angry with you. And
oh, I've seen Casablanca. I've got a poster.
Have you seen
Casablanca.
I didn't think you'd seen Casablanca.
Got a poster of Casablanca right over there. But
oh, lovely. Well, good. Okay, we can scratch that one off the list.
Yeah. Scratch that one off the list, exactly. But okay. So my last one, is, now I say half because I literally only watched half of this film because I couldn't watch anymore.
Well, we'll fill in the blanks. We'll figure out how.
Now, it wasn't necessarily that it was a bad film overall. I just couldn't. You'll understand why I say I couldn't watch anymore because of what it looked like.
Oh, so you chose not to watch the second half of this movie? It wasn't.
Yes. No, come on. I wouldn't bring a movie to the podcast.
I was like, listen, I didn't have time. I watched half of it. We'll fill in the blanks on the second half.
No. I need to make sure that I tell you I only watched half of this. I'm
okay.
Not, yeah, no.
I appreciate the disclosure.
Yeah, I would have only said 2 if I didn't have time to finish it. But it's basically Andy Serkis's Mowgli. So
okay.
I didn't finish this because I couldn't get over the look of these animals. Like they.
So this was the one that came out like a year after the Disney remake.
Really soon after, yeah. Like so, the Disney Jon Favreau Jungle Book came out in like 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 2016. Anyway, but it came out, and then it was very Disney, and like it was passable for, you know, it was a Disney remake, live action remake. It was serviceable. This film was more of like an origin story, I suppose.
Oh, perfect. Just what we always wanted.
Yeah, for Mowgli.
More of the Jungle Book before the cool animals got involved.
Now, I don't really know if it actually gets to the point where Mowgli's at the start of the Jungle Book, because I never actually finished it. Because if you haven't seen the animals that they've designed for this film, if you haven't seen what the CG renders of them look like, you need to have a look. Especially some of the wolves. The wolves are really weird looking.
Oh, like wow. Yeah, I've just looked those up. Those are super weird.
Yeah, it's because now there is an art to it as well that I probably will finish it eventually, but I couldn't get my head around it, to be honest with you. And I think it's because Andy Serkis is what he is. You know, that's he's a mocap performer, and I think he was really trying to create a new visual style that highlighted the actors' performances within these animals.
Well, they all have human faces. like that's the thing. I look at I can't, obviously we can't show our listeners this, but I'm looking at an image, a still from this movie, and it's presumably, I don't recognize 2 of them, but it's presumably Baloo and Bagheera next to each other, because there's a panther and a bear, and then there's like a couple of dogs or wolves or whatever. And like literally, you know, big cats and bears have very little genetically in common, but both of those definitely have human faces, which is slipping nicely into that uncanny valley is what I'll say for this image.
You know, I will say as well, the cast is great. Like Christian Bale plays Bagheera, Kate Blanchett is Kaa, Benedict Cumberbatch, Shere Khan, just basically doing his dragon voice from The Hobbit.
Just doing his jaw. Like the problem with Shere Khan is that everyone's just gonna do George Sanders like that. I feel like that guy just nailed the Shere Khan so perfectly on the first try that I'll be interested to hear what Benedict Cumberbatch's Smaug slash Shere Khan
it's literally
sounds
just
like,
Smaug. It's literally just the same voice as Smaug. I think that's what I feel anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is a little bit of something going on. Andy Serkis himself plays Baloo.
Okay. Is there any music in it?
He's sort of a Cockney. No, there's no music in it. Baloo is like a Cockney as well, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so that's Mowgli. If anyone else was brave enough to finish that, I probably will finish it eventually because I'd like to see where they're going with the idea of the Mowgli. Like, is he a superhero at the end? Like, this Mowgli origin story, you know, like, it's interesting
Does he discover the secret of man's great fire and take it to King Louis in like by the end of this movie?
That's what we need to know. But yeah, like, to be honest with you, the animal faces after a while, I was just like, can I have this on in front of my kids? Because this is terrifying. Like,
Yeah. Am I damaging my kids long term by making them think that wolves look this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
It's just not. Well, yeah. I think I've heard literally nothing about this movie. It's got a good cast. I'll say that much for it. As you say, I think was this Andy Serkis's directorial debut?
I think it was.
I feel like it might have been, which is a shame because he's.
I really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently he made Breathe, which is. No, I'm thinking of Don't Breathe. So I don't know what Breathe is, but yeah, that's a shame, frankly, from old Andy. But maybe he'll nail it next time when he does his gritty live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast, and all the wolves look like men in.
He's gonna play Belle, and he's gonna be mo-capped. His face.
Last. Taylor's oldest time. Yeah. That's the voice he'll do for that.
Well, that's actually Mrs. Potts or whatever that sings that song. But anyway, yeah, we get you.
That's true. Yeah, shows how long it's been since I've seen Beauty and the Beast. I don't know. What does Belle sing? Something.
Can't believe I'm stuck with him all summer. No, that's the Swan Princess. Never worry.
There must be more than this provincial life. That's the line I remember. I think that's Belle. Join us next week where we discuss Disney movies.
Eventually we will do a Disney movie one. Like, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we've got some suggestions for stuff that we'll do, like kind of more themed but still movie diaries. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe that'll turn up at some point in the future. But I think that's probably going to do it for us here this week on the Best Movie Podcast ever, folks. Which leaves us with just one simple question to answer, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie?
I keep going back and forth. Like, is it the film I didn't watch the whole way through? Is it Passengers, choice. Which I thought was absolutely a terrible attempt at a trolley problem? It's got to be the Grand Budapest Hotel, doesn't it?
Nice, good choice. Yeah, I think that sounds like the best one this week. Mine is definitely Saving Private Ryan. It's a great movie, and yeah, that leaves us just to say thank you for listening or watching if you're checking us out on YouTube, and please do subscribe on podcasting apps at the Best Movie Podcast Ever or on YouTube at The Culture Cave. Give us a like, get involved in the comments, let us know what you watched this week and what you thought of these movies that we watched, if you did indeed see them. Share the show with your friends, and thank you to Jared, Iscariot and Nancy Wyatt for the use of our theme song. You can find their stuff down in the link below. But really, that leaves us with just one thing to say, which is that we'll see you same time. I can't speak towards the end of this. I've just lost my train of thought completely. We will see you same time, same place next week.
And cut.